Hello, Opening Pathways viewers. It's Tom Lenoble, and it's great to be with you again. Today I have Lindsay Friedman. Lindsay is the founder of LTCareNav and CareBloom, and we'll learn a little bit more about that as we go along. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've been looking forward to it. Glad you're here with us. I want to jump right in and hear a little bit about your company and what sparked the idea to start it.
So both companies, they kind of built on each other. So the original Spark CareBloom came first, was I had been a nursing assistant all through high school, all like after high school through college. And I learned a lot and I was like, I'm going to be really good at this. So when it came time to be my grandma's caregiver, I was like, I'm going to do this. I know how to do this. And I realized there's like a lot more into caring for your family member than there is when you're actually in a professional setting. And so through that, I actually had an experience where we were fortunate. My grandma had some good planning in place. She had some long-term care insurance that we had assistants who were coming in at night. And one night, my grandma kept saying, they're not sleeping in the room with me. I was like, oh, well, they say they are. Turns out my grandma was right. My grandma fell and broke her femur. And that's what sparked CareBloom and really trying to fix this. I had seen all the issues that come along with this. And as CareBloom launched and I started working with families, all of the logistical stuff that I thought I was the only one like not capable of handling, like the legal, the financial, turns out that's something every family deals with when they're dealing with caregiving. And that was what I created LT Care Now for, was really to kind of end to end help families through caregiving and the process of long-term care.
Amazing. I remember this well, and if we're all lucky enough, we get to go through the part of our life where our parents who have shepherded us, not everyone, but most of us shepherded us through life and brought us into life, we get to be present for the end of life or illness. And I remember it well, and it is difficult to navigate for sure. So tell me this, once you created it, was there a moment when you said to yourself, yep, this is my path?
Yeah, so it started really with Care Bloom. I really had thought I was going to be a nurse and that I was going to do hands-on care. And the only thing that derailed that after I'd finished a business degree was that I'm squeamish. And blood was really challenging for me, which makes it really challenging to be a nurse. And it was sort of a really big letdown for me to know that I wasn't going to be able to serve that community. So when I came up with the idea for Care Bloom, I felt like I was home. I felt like I can go back to serving this demographic that meant so much to me. And I was sort of felt like empowered. I'm like, and now it's not going to be one-on-one with my time. I can help so many elders and so many families keep that independence. And I was really excited about that.
Yeah, I love these organizations that do this work. In our country, we don't always do the best job of thinking about our elders as some other countries, and I hope we're getting better at it with businesses like here. I know there's a woman, Rachel Doyle, who's been on my podcast, and she has something called Glamour Gals. And her, as a kid, she had this idea of matching young women with elderly women. And check it out, it's amazing what they've done. It's such a tribute to people who have a passion for this. So tell me, I'm curious, how are you fundamentally different yourself since you started all this?
I think that the big change in me was that I actually have been able to see that every family is so different and every situation is so different. And where I originally was like, oh, it's a one-stop solution, I really learned that you have to meet people where they are, that not every elder is going to want the same thing. Not every family dynamic is going to give that. So I don't think I realized how different solutions had to be to meet everybody's needs, as well as how many people had different wants and what they looked at like and what that would look like for them. Plus, now I've really grown to see how many solutions there are out there to meet everybody's needs. So, really, that's been a really interesting experience for me to have learned to see the landscape on all sides of it.
I love this. You know how much we like to choose things in life. Why wouldn't we want to keep doing that and in this phase of our life, right? So I've learned on this podcast, and I know it's true for myself, that who we are today was heavily influenced by somebody when we were really little. Who was that for you?
My grandma, um, she was she was the most incredible woman that I have ever known. She was a Holocaust survivor, and she came out of this with the ability to still love people and accept people for their differences. And she loved life and she laughed. And she always taught me that, like, as bad as things are, there's always great moments. And she
Mm.
aged beautifully. She helped plan for herself. And she really talked about what she wanted. And we were able to really kind of put that in place for her. So she's my like North
Yeah.
Star.
You know, my grandmother's is it for me as well. I was a little kid and um, I spent a lot of time with her, and I remember I used to go stay with her for the weekend, and we'd go get these root beer floats. But she used to teach me so many things that my parents would have never talked about to me, and or never taken me down that path that made an impression later. I love it when we have somebody like that in our life. Tell me this: what values have guided you from the start, and which one has deepened over time?
I think some of my values actually come to some of my grandma's stories that I'll share because it just was so profound to me. My grandma would talk about how there was such minimal food. They were in Auschwitz. And how she would steal potatoes. And, when you would do that, you would think you would take it for yourself and your siblings.
Yeah.
My grandma said she would make sure she divided it amongst every girl in the barrack. She wanted to make sure no matter who they were, she felt that every life was equal and everyone should have a chance and everyone should be able to thrive. And that to me has played so much into who I am and how I'm looking at building both of these companies. It is really about giving everyone the opportunity to thrive in the way they would like.
Hmm. So tell me about a risky decision that paid off and what gave you the courage to act on it.
So I think the risky decision was even to go into building a hardware product when it came to CareBloom. I had this idea. I was like playing with it, and I was getting told by everyone, hardware is hard. And you were in the tech space, right? Hardware scares investors, hardware scares founders. And I, and it was risky, and maybe I didn't realize how risky and how many hurdles there were going to be. Maybe it was like naivete that kind of got me to get over it. But deciding to build a hardware product without having that initial, like, years of experience was a very risky decision.
What gave you the courage?
Um, I believed that I could, and I knew how badly this device was needed. I've seen it over and over. So I'm really going to say the necessity and believing in what I
Yeah.
was building was going to fix a huge problem.
Yeah, I think the power of belief is stronger than any of us give credit sometimes. I know it's served me well with some illness over time. Tell me this, how does Lindsay decide when to pivot or push through?
So I've had to pivot a lot with CareBloom. Is we originally started that and we were going to assisted living and nursing homes before COVID. We had finally had a product that was ready to be tested. It took years of R&D and we were ready and we had just installed it into several nursing homes and were like knee deep into testing and then COVID hit. And I was forced into a pivot, is basically what happened. And it was a really hard moment. I cried a lot. There was a lot of crying. I mean, I feel bad for everyone with COVID, but it was like I'd gotten there. And that was a good, we pivoted. It was like either we shut down because we have no idea what it's going to look like for a B2B that way, or we can kind of change and like let's meet people where they want to be now. There was really a huge change to like I really want to stay at home. So we really kind of diverted the product and pivoted and became a home product, really focused on the homes, which turned out as difficult as that was a really wise play, especially as we've like seen how we've been playing out after COVID.
Amazing, amazing. Tell me, what did last year strip away and you're glad it's gone?
Oh, um, I feel like I don't want to. We had some issues with tariffs last year that I'm really glad are gone. Trying to do that as like gently as possible. That really played. That was our next moment of we have gotten really good traction and then the tariffs hit, and that was really hard for us. So I'm really glad we've come back to some kind of stability to make it so we can start placing orders and being able to distribute on a grander scale.
Yeah. What's something about leadership that no one prepared Lindsay for?
So Lindsay's a people pleaser and tries really hard to make sure everybody is happy. I'm not, I try not to be pushy. I'm I'm finding that as there are more people you're working with, you have to take an approach where I'm still trying to learn where to that balance of like saying, this is what we're gonna do. We're still being very collaborative. Like I'm trying to learn that. That's what Lindsay's really working hard on this year.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love this. I love this. So, tell me, how do you recognize when fear is just information and not a stop sign?
I have looked at it in most cases, fear is always information. Fear is something that you can take and say, this is really, really scary. And what can I do? Let me analyze every piece of it because there's always a way to kind of hop that hurdle of fear. And so, really taking that, and I'm sort of a nitpicker and super analytical. So, I like pick things apart. And I think it's helpful. I think you learn a lot from your fears. You can see what's going to go right. I think fear is positive in a lot of
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah, I've learned in this life that for me, fear and the old imposter syndrome that people talk about so much today or and have been are just opportunities for growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just an opportunity to growth. And so many people I work with forget the evidence of the things they've overcome in their life. Something new comes to them that's a huge challenge and it paralyzes them, freaks them out, makes them want to run, whatever it is. They forget what they've been through in life and how they got through it already before. So it's kind of interesting. Tell me this. Um, what tested your integrity more than your competence?
So for me, integrity is sort of my like guiding star. Everything that I do, I have a hard stop on. If it is something that I don't believe is right, I'm not even going to go there. I've had a lot of people tell me my business model for LTCareNav which is free for families. They were like, no, it shouldn't be free for families. You could charge for what you built. And I want to, to me, my mission is to give back. And so my integrity, I might not be, they don't think I'm being as competent about it, but my integrity says this is where we have to lie.
I love it. I love standing by what we believe, and I love this idea of being of service to others. I think that's what I'm about too. What are you most proud of, Lindsay? Not publicly, professionally, but personally.
My daughter. Instead, so my kiddo has a lot of health complications. I think I've even mentioned them to you a little bit. And she is as tough as nails. We were actually at a test the other day and they were walking her through it and she's like, I have to get to school. I need to go do this. I've got a lot to get through today. So her will to push through and her drive and how she's handling and managing her illness with such grace and positivity, like she's the thing I'm most proud of.
I love that. How do you ensure that the soul of what you're building doesn't get lost in the success of it?
That is a big question because, like, as you know, sometimes in these companies, if you bring in investors or other partners, there can be differences in opinions of what success looks like. I'm doing my best to hold on to a lot of that because I built these companies as you said, in mind of service, in mind of the people who I want to use them. And so as long as I'm in charge, my mission is first and foremost.
Mhm. Have you ever said no to growth because it wasn't aligned?
A little, yes. And it's sort of yes. So as of right now, like with LT CareNav, there have been things I have said no to just because I think it's not the right move, and it definitely financially probably would have been meaningful.
Hmm.
But my
That's our
vision, yeah,
that's our true test, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a test.
It is a test. It really is. It's a test of we stand in who we say we are and how we want to live our lives. I'd rather go to bed and sleep at night than go to
Yeah.
bed thinking about whether I made the right decision. So tell me this, what boundary do you personally have that is essential to your sustainability?
So I think it all goes back for me to that my boundary is I'm going to take care of people. I'm going to do what I set out to do. And you know, as I said, I set out early on to like hold hands and to be there and to be comfort. And so what I'm building and what I'm doing, that is my boundary. We are not going to get to the point where I am not being helpful
Hmm.
to families.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How does Lindsay balance being a leader with being a learner?
I I am a learner, I think, first and foremost, and I think good leaders should learn from everybody on their team. If you can't take input, then you're not seeing the whole picture. And so I think that all leaders should begin with learning and learning about their team and their product and what everybody needs, and not just saying, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. I love learning. In
Yeah.
fact, I say I'm going to be taking my last breath and I'm going to hold my finger up and say, just a moment, I have a question before I take this last breath. So, what's your boldest vision of what's coming?
So my boldest vision is hoping that this conundrum we're in with the long-term care and caregiving infrastructure, I see it not getting better for a handful of years, but I have this vision that families are going to get through this wave and then see how much a plan is going to help. And then my generation is going to go into this with a completely different mindset. And this is not going to be the turbulent times that we're seeing for baby boomers.
Yeah, yeah, I love this because let's hope we learn something. I know one thing I'm trying to do, and right now I'm not doing the best job. I started and got carried away with this book, is after being the one that was in charge alone of my parents and some friends of having to clean up their stuff. And I think we, especially my parents' generation, think you're going to keep that stuff forever and it means something to them. People don't want our stuff. And the best gift we can give is to clean up our stuff while we're capable and not get rid of everything that you love, but the stuff and the minutia of things that people really aren't interested in, that it's something to you. And so we'll see how that turns out. But I'd like to think we're going to do a better job of that, as well as what you just stated. So tell me this, what does renewal look like for Lindsay beyond rest and a day off?
So Renewal for me looks like finding peace in every day. Like right now, like there are a lot of challenges with building something to make a difference, right? Being on the other side of that to me and having that, being able to see like how many families I've impacted, that's kind of the big moment is I'm seeing already, we've had so many families come on in the past several months, but to be able to see that change, that impact of what it looks like to plan ahead, that to me is going to be like the I did this, I had success when I start to see what that transition looks like to planning enough in advance. So I'm really hoping that is my ultimate goal is to change how we look at this whole situation.
Mm. What question is guiding your decisions this year?
Um, hmm. I've got lots of questions. I'm obviously like you because I will probably be on my deathbed. I have lots of questions that guide every bit of decisions. I'm like you, a question asker. I don't know if I have just one. You are the first one to ever stump me.
Didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. That's I don't have a great answer for you on one question. Um, I don't have a good answer. I wish I did. I'm trying to
Okay,
think. Yeah.
okay, I'll let you off the hook.
Yeah.
Tell me this. Um, I'm interested in knowing what legacy means to you at this stage of life.
So I look back in my grandma's legacy, and it wasn't that she created or changed anything, but she changed me. My cousins too. My daughter talks about her. My daughter only got to know her for a
Mm,
few years. And so I think that's true legacy. When the people you love, when you have helped to shape them and frame how they look at the world and how they have now gone forth and have made a difference, that that is what true legacy is to me.
mhm. I love this. I've been thinking about legacy for a while and it's changed over the years. And I can remember a time when I wouldn't even want to think about it. It wasn't something that was even in my radar. And I now think that it's not anything to do with me. It's a more about things I've done in the world and how they might continue on without me around, and that I knew I planted some trees that I'll never see the shade of, and that things happen, and somehow knowing that that will carry on and trusting it, whether I'm here or not. Somebody told me on this podcast, in 50 years, nobody will know who we are or remember who we are. And I think there's some truth to that, unless you're somebody truly famous, or like a president or somebody in that way where you get a bridge named after you or something like that. It's an interesting thing. So tell me this, if your younger, real young Lindsay were listening to our podcast that we're doing today, what would you tell her?
To follow your path, to believe in yourself a little bit more, and to know that your kindness is not weakness, which I was told prior, like that finding a pure path is is your true north and to just keep following that.
Love that. What have you learned about trust on this journey?
That that there are unfortunately people who you might not be able to trust. And to always come from it in a place that I'd love to assume everyone's coming from a good point of view, but the question asking can usually get you to understand what trust is. Good questions and deciphering the answers on your own.
Love it, love it. If you could leave our listeners with just one invitation, what would it be?
That this is your life and hopefully you have the opportunity to age and hopefully you have the opportunity to care for your parents and to prepare for that because it can be a really beautiful journey
Mm.
and do everything you can to make sure it's that and not the struggles that a lot of people find themselves in because that's the norm right now. But to enjoy those moments because this is what life has to offer.
Yeah, I remember. I love that. I remember the going through it and the difficulty of caring for parents and others. And when I look back on it, it's like it means so much to me. It was just I'm so happy and satisfied and grateful that I was able to be part of that. I learned so much from it, and I know I was of service to them and shared my love with them. So, Lindsay Friedman, founder of LTCareNav and CareBloom, tell us anything you want to tell us and where we can find you.
So if you go to ltcarenav.com/podcasts, you can find me there, and we're giving away a free ebook to start the conversations about planning and also 25% a month off of CareBloom.
Wow, amazing. So tell us again, so the viewers that were like trying to scratch that down, where we can find that.
ltcarenav.com/podcasts with an S at the end.
Wonderful. Lindsay, thank you for being on Opening Pathways.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and to my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble, and I'll see you next time.